late Wednesday morning time, and we move it around, unfortunately.
All right,
Because-
Henry McClure Live. We're in the Glass Houses studio today, and we've got Marshall Barber, my blue-eyed brother from a different mother, and Nancy Boyd is in the house today.
Yay. Thank you, Henry. Thank you,
thank you.
Marshall. Too much fun.
So,
it's way too much fun.
Nancy was saying that she wants more adventures.
No, I got more adventures.
You get more adventures ahead of you. You're looking forward to more adventures. And I think that's what's going to keep you young.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we were talking, Henry, you grew up with a bunch of adventure and did a bunch of kind of fun things, and maybe you were even possibly naughty from time to time.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
from
maybe,
time to
possibly.
time. Yes.
Oh, good.
I learned it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Well, I grew up anything but naughty. I was raised in a Southern Baptist household. We went to church 3 times a week, and I was not naughty. I had to learn not to be. I'm not saying I'm naughty, but I had to learn that life was an adventure a lot later on in life than you do. So the older that I get, the more fun life begins, and the more, I'm running for Congress. What, that doesn't make any sense
Why not?
Well, that's it.
Fun.
Exactly.
I think it's fun you're running for Congress.
Well, I appreciate that. It's also not just fun, but I'm going, my God, our country is in such a mess right now. I feel like I have
maybe
to.
the values, maybe those Southern values, less adventurous, might be good to help stabilize things.
Absolutely. So I tell people who kind of look and say, you were raised Southern Baptist, and I'm going, yes. And as a matter of fact, all of those values have turned out to be a huge blessing to me.
Yes, in the
as
long
I
run.
kind of joke, especially after a couple of decades of therapy. But I did learn, I learned a lot of things that have served me well. And when I ran for Congress 18 years ago, 20 years ago now, the first time, why am I the best candidate? Because I am bilingual. I speak right of center. And if you don't think there are 2 different languages, think
That's
again.
funny.
And so I don't only speak right of center, I speak King James Version right of center. And quite honestly, now I'll stop. I'm not joking about this, but I meet people where they are. I'm the only Democrat in my entire family, the only one. So I have learned, it took me some time because.
So the Southern Baptists are more Republican, is that what you're saying?
Oh, my heavens, yes. Oh, my heavens, yes.
So your bumper sticker says solutions are in the center.
Solutions are in the center. And actually, that's where I am. So there was a headline just recently that I said, I'm not the best party Democrat. Marshall, I hope that's okay with you, but I'm not the best party Democrat. I am very much of a
Well,
centrist.
isn't that a badge of honor?
I would think so.
Because I don't want to identify with a lot of Republicans.
Yep, right.
Absolutely.
And most people are in the center. Most people are pretty moderate. They're not at the extremes. They're pretty tired of the extremes. So I think the fact is it's who I am. I'm not taking that position so that I can be a moderate and maybe that'll help me win. No, it's absolutely who I am. And those Southern Baptist values. So I tell people, I was raised Southern Baptist. I graduated high school in 1973. So I'm not young. I got it. But I was taught 3 things. And interesting what we were talking about. One is never to drink. Right. Never.
I like the next one.
Right.
Well, not so much.
The next one is to keep your knees together until you're married. Oh, my heavens. Yep, absolutely.
Think of that.
That's what good girls do. And then the third one was that Jesus actually cared about people. Jesus cared about poor people. After 1973 and 1976, the president of the Southern Baptist Convention was replaced with a political Republican operative. And starting in 1976, I don't know whether you know it, but Jesus came to save our families from gay people. Yeah, not there for poor people, but to save our families from gay people. And I'm like, oh my, so I grew up in this kind of I grew up in this kind of golden time. And so I have said for the last 20 years, and I try to do it nicely. And if I'm feeling kind of sour or not kind, or if there's any bitchiness in it, I just keep my mouth shut. I don't try, but I'll say, you know what? Jesus never said a word about homosexuality. Never. And if you don't think it wasn't an issue at the time, well, take a look at Greek pottery, okay? It'll make me blush for crying out loud.
Well, yeah,
Jesus never said anything. What he did say was that we were to love God and we were to love our neighbor And on those two hung all the laws and the prophets, everything. And we talked about this earlier, Henry.
And that
What
was
would-
a great conversation.
What would
And I'm
happen?
glad you're bringing it up.
What would happen if that's what we taught our children? Can you imagine? So I like to kind of joke. I don't, but Jesus said to love God and to love neighbor, right? What if, I don't know, this is a crazy question, but what if he was right? What if Jesus actually, what if he was right? We just kind of disregard it and put all kinds of things on Jesus that have nothing to do with loving God and loving neighbor. And I just wonder what would happen. So I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church
So
at a
give-
time when I was taught who I fundamentally am today.
So give me a little, I'm an Episcopalian.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and I know the origin of my religion,
Mhm.
but give me just a little quick background historically of this Southern Baptist.
You do know the background. Yes. So there were Baptists across, and part of them were clearly about religious freedom and came over and to found our country on the issue of religious freedom. There was this is gonna be a long answer, Henry. Is this okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I might learn something.
You might actually learn something. I love church history. I'd rather talk theology than politics. So there was a split in the Baptist church, and the Southern Baptists split over the issue of slavery. And it was slavery, and they said, we are pro-slavery, and the rest of the Baptists said, well, we aren't. And so this very profound shift happened.
Is
Well-
that how the Southern Baptists got their name?
Absolutely. Yeah. It
We're
was one-
Baptists in the South and we support slavery? Is
Absolutely.
that the idea?
Well, absolutely. That's why the split happened.
Wow, I did not know that.
But so there's some nuance, and this is going to be hard to hear. Okay? So this is very nuanced story. When you look, and I'm going to try not to feed into. It's going to be hard. I've never done this publicly or anything, but the Apostle Paul, who said a lot of things and had a lot to say about who Jesus was, a lot had to do with the founding of the church. And the Apostle Paul was the one who said that wives need to be submissive, who said that homosexuality is wrong. One time he said that. And then he also said that slaves should work hard for their masters and honor their masters. Paul says this, that slaves should work hard and honor their masters. Now, then Paul says, if their masters are a believer, meaning a follower of Jesus, that they should work even harder and have more respect for their masters. So this is a lot like you see some things that happen today. So these people, the slave owners in the South, if we can stop, if we look at them for a minute and stop demonizing them for just a moment, what they did was horrific, but go back into their world. So they have all of this wealth and all of this power. And just like Spain did when they went out and got slaves and got the free world and got all of the gold and silver from the new world and said that that's because God has blessed us, not the people who broke with the church, but the people who stayed with it. And God, it's clear that God has blessed us. Look at all the wealth that we have, right? So in the South, it was the same thing. Clearly, we are the people who love God and serve God. We are God's chosen people. Just look at all the wealth that has come our way. Okay, we all know that Jesus said wealth is the wrong way to get to heaven. Wealth is the root of all evil, right?
The love of money is the root of all evil.
Exactly. Thank you. But these people saw themselves, and it's helpful if you can get into their heads. They saw themselves as the upright defenders of the faith. And so if you want to look at the Civil War, I know this is probably going to be too nuanced, but if you look at the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln gave them a chance to say, we don't even have to give up slavery. Well, they said, no, our honor has been defamed. We have been called things. You have dishonored our tradition. You have said that we are not pleasing to God. And so you see a lot of that today. And if you understand that we believe, I believed that they just took some scriptures and said, well, we're going to pick this out to defend who we are. Well, if you go back through history, you can see they weren't just picking out, that they truly believed that they were the followers, they were the ones who were the upright, they were the righteous ones. And they had the passages from Paul to do that. So you see a lot today where people are saying, you see the prosperity gospel. It's the same thing. Clearly, God is blessing us because look at all of the riches that we have. 100% counter to the teachings of Jesus Christ. But it's something, I'm the only Democrat in my family. And I look at people and I always meet them where they are. I don't make a habit of telling people that they're wrong. I just had the most fascinating conversation at breakfast with someone who gave me some, I won't go into it because she might be listening to it at some time. It was fascinating. I never said, what on God's green earth are you talking about? I just said, I listened to her and Bob and friends were with us and they said, wow, how did you do that? Well, I met her where she was and I said, I can see how concerned you are. I didn't say, what are you talking about? It was a very strange conversation about something that I had, right.
Can we talk in a general way? Can we say,
no, I don't want to ever do anything to disrespect
Yeah,
her.
that's fine.
I don't want to disrespect her, but it was off the wall.
So,
And I met her where she was. So when we talk about slavery, when we talk about the South, these are people who still believe it came as a shock to
Well-
them that the rest of the world thought that they weren't following Jesus Christ, that they had full right and that slavery was actually condoned, which in fact the Apostle Paul had condoned it. To tell them that they were the people who were not good Christians set them onto a course, and we are still seeing that today. They're still defending their faith and still feel like they have been grossly misunderstood. So you see that, you see it today. Instead of telling somebody they're wrong or they should change, I actually listen to people and I can understand sometimes where they're coming from. Of course, I wouldn't condone slavery, but I also don't condemn people either.
maybe in late stage capitalism, the point isn't so much condoning slavery as it is democratizing slavery in the sense that we all become slaves for the technocracy, as opposed to a cotton plantation or a tobacco plantation. We got the Elon Musk plantation,
Right.
and everybody
or
goes,
the Walmart
oh,
plantation.
Oh, my
yeah,
Or
right.
the Home Depot plantation. And see, what I think that we've done with economic development in our neighborhood here is that we've turned those distribution centers into the modern day cotton fields. And that's all they are.
Facebook Live with Henry McClure.
We're
and
not
congressional
teaching
candidate
people how to
Nancy
be
Boyda.
entrepreneurs. And but I love your Civil War analogy
So
because
is it too hard for people to understand? If I'm trying to sound like, if I sound like I'm defending anyone, but I think understanding where people are coming from has always benefited me in being able to listen to people and to meet them. As I always say, Jesus always met people where they were always. And with my family, I mean, I spent a decade trying to tell them they were wrong.
you know,
It did not go
no,
well.
I understand. I look at my mom and her sister, and it was almost like my mom was a Republican, and we grew up as Republicans. But my aunt was a Democrat. I think she was a little older, just to be not a Republican. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be what you are. And it was interesting growing up in that. But what I want to go back to the Civil War thing because it's interesting how I believe Kansas settled our future.
Absolutely.
It's still a battleground state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just about 8 miles from our little farm is the place where the first shots of the Civil War were actually fired. A man named Charles Dow was murdered right at what's called Stony Point now. And so I did a video out there that murder led to the sack of Lawrence, led to the Battle of Blackjack, led to Bleeding Kansas, led to President Abraham Lincoln giving his house divided among against itself cannot stand. The words of Jesus, by the way. So it started right 8 miles, and the church it was called not Stony Point. It was called, oh my gosh, I can't remember now, Walnut Point or something else back in the 1860s, 1850s when this happened. But this was right in yes, Kansas was absolutely, the world would be so different if people from Massachusetts hadn't come to Lawrence, bring their families. And would you have done the same? Would you have put your families in harm's way? Would you have put your daughter in harm's way and come from Massachusetts instead? We're going to stand against slavery. I mean, it's easy for us to stand against slavery. These people put themselves smack dab in the middle of harm's way. I would like to think I had that much courage. Well, courage, conviction. And it wasn't just them. It was their families.
They didn't fly out here either.
And we need to look today and say, how much courage do we actually have? How much do I have? I'm not sure. I think one of the things that I posted years ago, if you wonder what you would have done during the Holocaust, it's what you're doing right now.
That's interesting to consider.
So let's go back to the beginning with a little introduction about Nancy Boyda.
Well, we're trying to get some. So I can't see over here. Is that one? Can another one come on? I can't see. Can you? There I am. Can you see this?
Well, so
I don't see
these are the two cameras.
No, I know, but is one of these screens? Okay.
And that screen is.
Here we go.
And so I would point right at the camera.
Okay.
See the cameras up here?
Okay. All right, here we go.
Facebook Live.
Yeah.
So this is my bumper sticker. We have not done big yard
signs. We'll have some will you leave a couple?
Oh, well, we'll leave as many as you want.
So we're going to leave some bumper stickers here in the Glass Houses studio.
Right. So this is Solutions Are in the Center. And as I've said, I'm not the best Democrat. I'm not trying to be the best Democrat. I believe that if we can't get the right and the left to come together, that we are absolutely going to lose we're splitting completely apart. I don't know if you hear about it, but people talk to me about civil war, and it's interesting. I hear it from the right. I hear people who are ready to go into civil war. They're armed and they're ready. I said something to somebody, and the answer was, "Well, that's all coming from the left. They're going to do it." And I'm like, "And which guns are we going to be using? I don't know about that, but we are about to split apart." So when I was in Congress before, I said, if we can't find a way to bridge the ideological, political, and I said religious divide, that we are going to lose our democracy. That was one of my key themes 18 years ago. And so I get to be a one-note Nancy and say that we can do that. So this woman that I was talking to at breakfast,
yes,
who was kind of out there, she came back over and said, listen, I just think that we have to come together. And I'm like, oh my God, she's on my message now. So I listened to her, key number one, listened to her and said, well, so, I pointed to my shirt, Solutions Are in the Center. Here it is right here. And this woman who had let me know that she could not vote for me because I was a Democrat to start off with. And I said, I hear you. I respect that. She came over and said, we have to find a way to get the right and left speaking to each other. And clearly she is on the other team. So I don't care who I talk to. They go like this and say, yes, that's my gift, is to bring people together.
Every time I say that we got to quit being Republicans and Democrats, there isn't anybody that doesn't agree.
Right.
And so your message is really interesting. So the idea of bringing us together, I think your message at the very beginning of the program is the answer. And if you ever wanted to pull Republicans over to vote for a Democrat, I've lived long enough that you voted for the right person back in the day. And I want that to come back again. We got to quit being Republicans and Democrats. But your message that what was instilled in your heart from day one, when you were less adventurous, is the foundation of the country,
Mhm.
and it's the foundation of a lot of people in the center.
Well, and the question is, it's a nice thing to say, but how? And so one of the things is I get to talk about it a lot, not so much in the primary. When I started talking to the Democratic groups and Democratic committees, um, the solutions are in the center wasn't necessarily the strongest message that they wanted to hear. So you meet people where they are. And when I talked about what we care about, which is housing, which is inflation, which is what are we going to do about healthcare, which is what are we going to do about all the issues with Israel, with Hamas, with Ukraine, all of the issues. And so within that group, I solutions are in the center wasn't necessarily what party Democrats wanted to talk about. But when I've
But
had
Americans do.
absolutely, and I'm not saying that they don't, but that wasn't, they're good people. I'm very proud to be a Kansas Democrat, but they wanted to talk, they're partisan, and they wanted to talk more about how I was going to uphold more democratic principles. And then I ended up very visibly putting out a few press releases that broke with my party, instead of saying I'm going to be a good Democrat. I was in a position where I felt like I had to say, this is who I will be. I don't want to say it in the general. I'm going to say the things that I need to say right now so that we can have a big discussion about it and you can vote for who you want to. So one of the things, and I will say this is a partisan thing,
This
that
is part one.
Republicans
We
are
will
pretty
get
used to
that
telling
in
people
part
one
two.
thing in a primary, and then everybody knows that when they get into the general, they're going to change. And everybody, so I was talking to somebody and
Maybe could that not could be nonpartisan? Could that be more uh, Republican or anybody running for office?
I don't know that you're going to hear a lot of Democrats tell you one thing in a primary and another thing in a general.
Okay, the
You just
message stays the same.
it pretty much does. And tell me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, anyway, I could go into some stories on that, but I want people to trust who I am. I don't want to try to nuance something. I wanted to say, and the issue that we're talking about was around the issue of transgender girls in sports. So we can divert right there. Let me talk about that in 1 minute. So how do we bring people together? Well, first of all, right now, I am modeling it and I am trying to get a message out that meeting people where they are will be your most effective way of helping to heal this country. And as I said, I cannot go to Washington and change a damn thing. Okay? Won't happen. If we're going to change anything, it's going to be on the ground and getting Kansans to reach across and to rebuild the trust with their neighbors, that trust that has been broken. Without trust, we literally will lose our democracy. Cannot have a country if we don't have trust in each other. So I model that.
You know what's easier to trust somebody with your values, though? The values that you grew up with.
Yes, say more.
I'm serious. It's we need more of that and talking about it.
Well, tell me what that means.
That is God. That is spiritualness. That is good values. You grew up. So what if it was a little strict and less adventurous? You grew up toeing the line. You grew
I
up,
did.
yeah, following the rules, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I did. It did take, and I'm not suggesting that we all grew up Southern Baptist. It has been a blessing to me over the years. But I will also tell you that so many people react to, I want separation of church and state. And so any discussion of my faith, which I can't speak for very long without talking about my faith because it is so fundamental to who I am. And I will always 100% of the time get somebody to come up and say, I'm an atheist and I don't appreciate that you're bringing God into the conversation. To which, of course, what do? Let's all say it in unison.
You pray for
No,
them.
no, 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 no. I
What?
meet them where they are. If
Okay,
they're
uninformed.
no, 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 no. If they are an atheist, that is their business. They
Yes.
find they
Okay.
find healing. They find something for their inner being in a way that I don't. But Jesus never tells us to push ourselves onto them. Jesus never says to do that. In fact, so I you won't find me saying, "Well, I'm going to pray for you," Sometimes I say, listen, the church has been used as a weapon, and I'm so sorry. And if that has had anything to do with how you feel, I want to apologize for that on behalf. Um, I am a big fan of Jesus. I'm a big fan of Jesus. Sometimes not of his followers, but I'm a big fan of Jesus. And they look at me and they go, oh, okay. I never would say you should believe in God. I would never push anything on anybody like that. I believe that no matter how they feel, that they are still, I believe that they are still beloved children of God. And what I truly, I was a chaplain for a year, and people can say, how did you do that? It was in an urban hospital. It was, I mean, at midnight when, a boy, young man, your son's age comes in brain dead from a motorcycle, you're in there doing it. How do you do that? And I would always say, well, on the days that I remember that God is God and I'm not, it actually goes okay. So when somebody comes up to me and says they're an atheist, guess what? There was a time that I believed that I needed to save them, and get them to say the Jesus prayer, and I got over that. I think I told you when we talked earlier, I grew up in St. Louis, outside of St. Louis, and we took little tracks with the Hare Krishnas. And I took little tracks around the airport to save people.
As a
Right.
Baptist or as a Hare
That's
Krishna?
a Baptist, as a Baptist. And then God said, sit down and shut up.
So-
You don't need to do that. That's my job. You can relax. You don't have to worry about the rest of the world. So if somebody comes up and says they're an atheist, I just love on them. It's my job. It's my only job.
Well, so an atheist could be somebody who is simply renouncing theology
Hmm.
as opposed to renouncing the existence of a higher power. Some people say that Jesus himself was an atheist and that he was going around telling people, look, you don't need this theology to experience God. In fact, this theology is keeping you from experiencing God because you're attached to the theology, you're attached to the ideas, not experiencing God, him or herself.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
Excuse me, can I take a little break here?
you want to take, okay.
No, I just
Yeah.
no, I just want to restart. Some of my viewers have said that we're better off doing some smaller segments. Hey, there we go. Let's get
And here-
that in here right
comes
now.
Bob with the big
Before we
sign.
close down,
Yay.
let's get that behind. Oh, look at that. That's perfect.
Yep. Can we put it up on a chair?
Yeah, we got some wall art. Oh, there's a little chair in my office. Oh, there you go.
So
Thank you,
That
Bob.
button will work. Okay, so look, we're going to come back live here in just a minute. We're having a public service announcement, and we're going to take a
Boyda.
public service announcement.
yes, and a short word from our sponsor.
If we had sponsors, this would be, I will keep
Well,
going.
I am anticipating them, and it will be a good time for a commercial break.
I'm in the middle of part 2 of my Facebook Live, so I'm going to continue.
So Marshall,
if
I
that's
think
okay.
what you said is fascinating. And I can tell you that if anybody